What's up, guys? Welcome to the Wolf of Young Street podcast. It's a good day today, guys. It's a good day. I've got Dr. Mariam Alayande in the house, and she's here to talk about her new book, Only If You Look in the Mirror. She's a writer, a dentist, amongst other things. Welcome to the show, Mariam.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah. I think where we're going to start off, and I'd like to ask you this question first. Considering everything that you do, what did you want to be when you were a little girl?
A doctor.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
did were there elements of literature and writing in your background?
Oh yes. My mom used to write. She did more of, let's say, spoken words and storytelling. So that was something that I grew up with, her telling me stories every time, and I think that was a major influence for me actually.
Oh,
So I wanted to be a
interesting.
doctor and a writer. It was both like, okay, I'll be a doctor majorly and then I'll write on the side.
So what kind of stories would your mom tell you as a little
Okay, I
girl?
would say horror stories. I think that does have a major solid stand when it comes to the way I tell my stories now, because I think I tend to write a lot of horror stories, which my
Oh,
audience
really?
I do. I
Yeah.
write a lot of horror stories, yes. She would tell me horror stories of children in the what's it called in the forest and animals attacking them, those kind of things. It was very fascinating. Young mind. Sometimes I remember the stories like their memories, like I was there. That's how good she was with the storytelling. I'd remember like I was there. And I'm like, wait, was that ever in the bush? I'm like, no. It was a story that mom told me.
Oh, that's so how did you get started writing? What would you say is your earliest memory start that you can kind of describe, like writing something and feeling like you were starting to kind of craft words?
Okay, I think I was 9. I believe I was 9. I just gotten into secondary school, and they had this really big library, and I'm like, oh my god, this is books, just books. So I would go to the library, find the poetry and the storytelling section, and then I'll bring the books out. And then I realized that I couldn't take the books home. I don't know why. So I got a notebook of my own, and then I would write the poems there. I think it was from one of Bolisho Inka's book. I just liked the way this thing sounded. I wasn't really sure what it was at that point in time. So I would write the poems in my own book, notebook. I'll go home, I'll read them. And then I think that was actually how I started writing things. Like, so I would start writing different things like that and also stories. So I remember around that 9 years old, I put together a story collection. I think it was called The Golden Watch and other stories.
Wow.
Definitely Hollywood influence. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, I want to publish this. But then my parents were like, okay, hold on, it was just a long story. But in the meantime, I would still sell that one, the one that I printed, photocopied, and spiral bound it to whoever would come to visit us in the house. I'm like, this is my book, 10 naira.
Wow. That's I guess you should also add commerce to your one of the things you do there. That's
Exactly. I
and
was all about the
wow,
money from the stuff. that,
all about that
that is
paper. Yeah.
like
No,
you're gonna put the
that
good one.
is that. That's fascinating. And
Yeah.
growing up on horror stories and sort of a lot of like uh I guess mythical tales like that. How
Yeah.
did that influence the way you currently write and the way you portray your stories?
Yeah.
Does that show up in the way you write your
Yes,
stories?
yes, it does. It always shows up. I feel like there is no every single thing I would write always has a spiritual element to it. And I think apart from the stories, even I think I have had so many types of spiritual encounters. So it has been a solid thing for me because I believe there is no way of existing without the spiritual aspect. Like it's almost impossible. So one way or the other, that would always come out in the stories. So always find its way out.
Interesting. So we'll get into maybe we'll get into the spiritual aspects of things that you say later, just because you kind of this podcast is obviously going to be viewed by people in different parts of the world, right? And
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of people don't have the same experience of spirituality that you do, or that that maybe some Africans do.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe we'll get into that later. But where I want to go next for now is in terms of your style. If you were describing your style to a person, what would you say is your style of writing? What typifies the work of Mariam Alayande?
Hmm, that's a good one. Okay, poetry or stories?
Oh,
Both.
just yeah. What's your style? What's your style? You know.
Okay, I don't know why when you say this, it's the realism of it that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a major thing. The how realistic the whole thing is, the poetry and the storytelling. So I'll think, okay, maybe my style is just it being real in a way. Despite the fact that it might not have happened, I feel like I'm able to bring it to life in a very surprising manner. But yes, I'll say my style is real, if you can say that. Yeah.
Right. So I guess more so, how do you want people to when you write a story,
Okay.
like do you a lot I've heard a lot of writers say, I when I write a story, I kind of see it through the mind of my viewer, or oh sorry, my reader, and I write a story from their perspective, the way I want them to feel, the way what I want them to get out of the story. And I wonder how that influences your work.
Mhm. I think for me, as I'm the writer, I am also the reader. Because when I start a story, I can never tell you where it's going to go.
Hmm.
So as I'm writing the story, that's though I'm also experiencing the story, although I'm like the first reader. So I'm the writer and like the first reader at the same time. So I'm
Yeah.
experiencing the story. I do not know how it's going to end. So I'm as shocked as you are, but not at the same time. So when
Hmm.
I get to the point where it ends, I'm fascinated because I'm like, oh wow, this is what's gonna happen. I had no idea. So I think for me it's not like that, or more like maybe because I'm able to put myself as the first reader. It's
Yeah.
like putting myself in the shoes of whoever is reading it, but at the same time, they are the ones writing the story at the same time as they are reading it. Because I believe that whole experience makes the story better. Because then I
Hmm.
can say, okay, this ending is not working. I don't feel it like I'm not feeling the shock. I want to be like, okay, no, this is not what I'm reading. I can't believe this. So I want to. I think I'm usually going for the shock. I don't know why I like that. I like the surprise thing. No way, this is happening. Okay, wait, no, stop, hold on. This can't be happening kind of moment. So yes, I kind of live for that.
So speaking of shock factor, what
Yeah.
is the tool that you typically what is your go-to shock tool that you typically use in your writing?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
If you want to cause shock and or like absolute like oh my gosh did that just happen? What is your tool for doing that?
Okay. It can be death. I learned this a while back that you can't just kill off your characters. That's not the way to shock people. Like you're used to it, like the person dies. Yeah. It's not fascinating enough. But I wouldn't say I have a particular thing I use to achieve the shock. But I think I just go for things that would be like things you'd be like, this can happen, but you know that it's possible for it to happen. So it's things that are in between, things that are almost impossible, but they have a very possible factor to them. Not like, for example, when you're watching Hollywood movies, they do that thing where someone dies and then they come back again, or they have like a twin of the stuff. Oh, you know that it's not likely that that would happen. Or you can
Yeah.
imagine, for example, if the person did not die, the person disappeared, they couldn't find the person, they assume the person is dead or something, and then the person shows up, that kind of a thing after a while, but they didn't find the body. Those kind of things that can still make sense in a way. In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely not dead. I can't tell you the exact thing, but something realistic enough.
No. I'm not trying to discover your secrets here. So we can keep that for your for your novel, which we're going to talk about pretty soon, right? So in terms of like your creative process,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the fact that this is your first book, and just the backstory I know about just from research about the way the book came together. It's not very conventional.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to kind of describe that process here that led from the conceptualization to, well, just a little spoiler alert. Apparently, it took her 7 years to write this book. So I would like to know, like, sort of that process, 7 years in the making, from the conceptualization of your book, only if you look in the mirror, till this point where you have this, really not just, you know, good collection, good body of work that it is, but also that I don't know if anyone has mentioned that book is very aesthetically just amazing. I don't know who your designer is, but pay that guy more. That's
That's going on your body.
Yeah, no, he did a great job just
Yes, it did.
just with the aesthetic feel of that book. And for me, that's one of the things that draws me in when I pick up a book. But anyways, we digress. So I'm interested in your creative process from start to the point where we now have this book in our hands.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I usually write more than I can put out. It's a blessing. I'm thankful to God for it, but sometimes it can be a bit challenging. So over the course of that 7 years, I think from the start, let me go from the start. From the start, if you're writing, you get to a point where you would want to have your own book. But then the question would be, okay, what would you put in the book? Have you found your foot as a writer? Say, okay, I want to put out this body of work and I can stand behind it like, okay, this is my body of work. So I think at that point in time, that was probably the earlier days of medical school when I started probably writing this whole collection. And at that point in time, sincerely, I did not know what it was going to be yet. I'm like, okay, I keep putting the works together, putting it out there. And I think the day that it finally solidified in my mind was the day when someone told me that, oh, I got to your Instagram page and I just read through the what's it called, the poems, and it makes me feel like someone else feels the way I'm feeling. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a nice thing. I think it's time to actually get a book together. And then I'm like, okay, how do we get this done? That was probably like the four-year mark at that point in time. I'm like, okay, I have some things I've been writing. I think this would make a good anthology. That was the point. Anthology at that point in time. So I started writing them together, and at that point I continued writing more. And I decided, okay, um, I am ready to put this together. Let's see what we can do with it. But every single time there was just this feeling of it wasn't done, it wasn't ready. And suddenly I realized that as I was reading the book, it was as though I was telling a story. And I'm like, this is strange. Poetry tells a story maybe in a single poem, not in poem after poem after poem. That's not the usual thing for it. I'm like, this is like me having stories in poetry. This is very interesting. So that was when I decided to break it down into chapters. I'm like, okay, if this writer is trying to tell us a story, then we might as well do it in a way that the readers would be able to actually follow and not actually pick up one or two things. I make it more interesting also. I make it something unique. I like the unique point of view when you have something that actually stands out. So that was how we ended up breaking it into chapters. And then this now takes another time because now that it's in chapters, which means that it has to be solid. You have to be able to figure out which one doesn't fit, which more chapter fits. And by the time I thought it was done, it still wasn't done because there were some chapters that were missing. Because now we're telling a story, which means it has to end in a particular way. I have to be very conscious of the message it passes across at the end of the day because now it's not just open to interpretation. It has to send a message as a unit to the reader. So that's it. By the time we did all this, yeah, 7 years mark was already open. It's like, okay, finally the book was finished, and thank God we were able to get it out last year. Here we are.
Yeah, no. So you've written this book in a very unique way, right?
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
not very often that you get a writer make a novel basically that is composed of a bunch of poetry, right? That was a very unique, and I can tell you for sure, I don't think I've ever seen that before in my
Oh,
reading. So that I felt was different, and the way you try to kind of cut like a theme through your narration in that way. I wonder, did that start off like that, or did that just, like, when you were writing, did that start off that way, or did that just, at some point you were like, this story's sort of neat together, you know? Is that how it developed?
Yes, actually, that was what I was just saying about how it was when I was reading it. I was reading through the script actually. I think the first manuscript was ready. Then I realized it was telling a story, and that was when I
Right.
decided, okay, now if it's gonna tell a story, then it has to drive this story home. So that was when I tried to put it into chapters and just make it a more solidified story. Let's put it that way.
Right. So I think you you have kind of told us about this story, and
Right.
that's what where I want you to kind of go
Okay.
next for us, without giving anything away in the shock and awe factor. You know what I mean? So so I want you to just, if you can, just go through like the the way the story, maybe tell us the story without giving
Okay.
anything away, of
Very
course.
cool. Okay. Okay. So, okay, the story is basically a story of a lady. Just to call her the girl with no name because I don't know. I think it was just easier not to have, not easier, but it was much more cryptic for her to not have a name because I didn't want to give her a name so that other people that are reading it can see themselves in it. Because I believe once you give the person, what's it called? Once you give the main character a name, it takes away that element of people being able to put themselves into the story. So I decided she would be the girl with no name. So it starts off with basically a life. Basically, it's almost as though we're just journeying through life with her. So she goes from the beginning of love, which is a thing I think most people experience one way or the other. So she goes from love, and it's a very very fast thing because she goes from love and then immediately into heartbreak. Because wanted to get that hope away, and then from there we explore more about our friends, our family. She explores more about losing people, about death, about our search for love, to find a home, to finding herself, and trying to find God and trying to understand the things from out of this world. And then at the end of the day, her finally finding herself, her finally finding God, and her finally finding love. And in a way, we would not say the story has ended because I choose to see the story as a way of just showing you what life is basically. Like it's just like we just watching someone trying to live. So that's why we ended up with the title Only If You Look in the Mirror, because we watching someone trying to live is just like us seeing ourselves trying to live. So that way we just can pick up one or two things and figure out how our story can impact us positively and help us live a better life.
Hmm. Interesting. So one of the one of in a way, your style is very similar to Taylor Swift in that way. In that,
Okay, okay. That's interesting.
um,
I used to be a big
just a,
fan. Grew up with Taylor Swift like at the stand.
yeah. No, but in that way, your style is very, very much draws from elements of reality in that way, and
Really.
kind of it uses a lot of the reader's emotion. Um, but here's the thing, here's the thing. When I read the first few chapters,
Okay.
I was like, what is this woman doing? In the sense that I was like, you build up this love and this kind of like, you build up this emotion only to dash it every time. And this went on for like the first three chapters. I was like, is this woman a sadist or something? I don't understand. Like, why do you keep breaking our hearts like this? I don't understand. So, please explain yourself, people. Explain yourself.
Oh my
Why was that what you chose to do to us? I don't understand. Why did you take us through the washer like that?
God. Okay, first question. Have you ever been outspoken?
Uh
Mm.
yes.
Is it just once?
Oh. Well, let's just say enough.
So that's it. When people's hearts are broken or they go through that, cycle, it doesn't just happen once. It happens
Mm.
over and over till I'll say God has mercy on them basically. So, so in a way, it's kind of your ability to continue to love, and no matter how broken your heart is, you still you're smart. You learn your lessons, but then you still keep choosing love either way, because in a way it's as though we as humans, love is the thing that completes us in various ways. So you can't give up. You keep searching for it. And this is not just about maybe relationship love, like even with friendship, with family, with everything else. Like it's love that keeps us going. So it's a way of no matter how hard it gets, you have to you have to heal and just get back in it again. Because I know a lot of people that will say, okay, I've had friends, they broke my heart, they betrayed me, I'm not gonna have friends anymore. But when you find the good friends, it's a good thing to have. So you can't give up on love because you've been hurt one, two, three, four times. There are people that would not hurt you. But yet you're supposed to learn your lesson from those things you've gone through. Be smarter about your choices, be more vigilant about the people you befriend, and then you still do it. So that's why we went through that cycle in the book, because these things don't happen just one time. So if it happens to our character just one time and then at the end of the day it's now a sweet story, then it's not life, it's not realistic, because these things don't happen once and then you move on and then everything is good. Maybe it does, maybe like 1%, but usually it doesn't happen.
Wow. That's that's profound in that way. And and I like how you describe the human sort of addiction to punishment. Like we call it love. Anyways, um moving on. So apart from the heartbreak elements of the early parts of this chapter,
Yes.
of course you then delve into loss
Yeah.
at certain points in the book, and I wonder what you want people to take from that portion of the book.
Okay. Loss in this regard, are we talking about death?
Loss in, well,
Or loss
death
in
as
general,
one element of loss,
okay.
but obviously there's other elements of loss
Of
that
loss. Yes.
I'm happy for you to
Okay.
speak to here if you want to.
Okay, that's true. Okay, the elements of loss are there because, like I said, I think it's just a realistic part. Like we would always lose things. It's something that keeps happening to us as we grow older. It happens every time. If we are not losing someone close to us, it's a friend. If it's not a friend, it's a lover. If it's not a lover, it's family. Like would not always have everything we want to have with us, or even like a job. There's always that constant way of mother nature taking things out of us, whether we want it or not. And I don't know if I would say it's supposed to make us stronger, it's supposed to make us better, or it's supposed to make us appreciate life. Because a lot of times it doesn't look that way till maybe later, to an extent we learn to see the reason why we didn't have to have those things anymore. So yes, you're supposed to take away the fact that things would leave you, you would lose things. And it still goes back again to the fact of even when these things go, it's gonna hurt. You're gonna wish it did not, but you cannot give up. You can't give up. You have to just keep going. You can't give up.
Mm. I love how you use, a- and again, you spoke to this in terms of this is how you want people to be able to see themselves in the story that you've written here, and maybe even go through the process and come to an epiphany, come to their healing as you kind of resolve the emotions at the end of the novel. I think that's maybe that's I don't want to say it's an underrated aspect of the way your work is structured here, but I think that it's really really amazing that you the way you've done that. It's very clever too, because it's not the in your face way that most people that we've come to expect out of like modern writing. It's not in your face in that way. It takes a while for you to kind of like sit with it and really uh marinate the idea in there.
Yeah.
And maybe albeit like uh controversially, you come to a point where you're talking about spirituality and faith. And
Yeah.
obviously, now more than ever, there's a departure from, like, more often than not, you find that young people in the younger generation are less inclined to believe in something bigger, God, if you like. And I wonder why you specifically think like this higher power is important.
Okay. Well, there's so many aspects to the question. Okay, I think I
Break
would
it
say
down as much as you'd like. That's fine. That's fine. That's
okay, I think yes, it's true. A lot of people in these younger generations might actually struggle to believe there's a higher power. But the thing about it is that if you are able to see the other side, if you're able to see things like ghosts, you're able to you probably have encounters with the darker forces of life, then you understand that there is no way the dark exists without the light existing. So if you are, would I say, fortunate or unfortunate enough to have seen the darker side, there's no way you wouldn't know that. There has to be something that saves you from this. And if it's the light, then that's what you go with. And I
Mm.
think for me personally, I have seen that. I have people around me that have gone through that phase that have seen that. So that was why the element of God was very important. It was very important to see how God can save you. But then you're gonna be able to see that even though there's so many things that you go through, you're still somehow, let's still say, saved, because sometimes some people try to make it seem as though when you have God, bad things don't happen, which is not true. They still do. It's just that you have more strength because you know you're not alone to face them.
Mm.
So that's part why it was actually important. It was important for us to see our character because she tried to do it on her own, like, okay, love, friends, healing, finding herself, but she couldn't do that if she knew that, okay, it's not just me. Like, there is something else that is bigger than me that needs to get involved in my life for these things to take root, for me to be able to do these things with much more confidence. Because as much as we like to think, okay, we live in this world and everything is just as it is, there are so many spiritual aspects to every single thing we do.
Okay. Moving away from the spiritual aspects now.
Yeah.
Because I think we went down a bit of a of a rabbit hole there.
So yes, we did.
Yeah. So in terms of like part of your process, you've often and in a lot of your work and in part of the your other avenues of expression, you describe the importance of journaling, and I want you to kind of speak to what the importance of journaling is for people in not just writers like yourself, in their creative process, but also, you know, journaling as it pertains to just regular people going through life.
Okay. Cool. I just recently remember that for journaling, I picked journaling up from Vampire Diaries. I don't know if you remember. It was a major
I do
thing.
remember Vampire Diaries.
I just started watching it again this week, and I'm like, oh, this is where I picked up this journaling thing from. So for me, it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be something fun, and that was the intention at first. Until I realized, okay, this is more than that. This is more than that. Journaling itself, it's okay. No, there are different types of journaling. So I think we should just break it down to more like maybe a reflective journaling, which is the kind of one that's a diary, which is where
Mm,
you write your thoughts, you process your emotions. So I think the power of journaling comes from when you're able to sit down, you're able to pick up your pen, you're able to put your thoughts and your emotions down as a person. This is like a writer or no writer, you're able to put your thoughts down. You're able to think back to the events that happened that day, on how you reacted to them, how you truly feel about them, and how it might not be whatever it is you want to do about them, but it gives you this avenue to see yourself better, to understand yourself better, to process your emotions and be more grounded as a person. So yes, definitely, it's something that everyone should partake in. Although some people are kind of worried about the security of their, what's it called, their journals, both
mm,
digital and like, what if somebody reads it or something. Or I do realize I learned this trick like a few years back, or if you're concerned about somebody reading your journal, you could write in the journals and burn the pages after a while. You could burn the pages after a while if you're that concerned about it. But write
okay.
it. Apparently, the main power is you being able to write it. Although it's good to be able to go back and read them and analyze them, but if you don't have that chance or you are really skeptical, or you could just be some pages that you don't really want to see anymore. But I still think it's a good thing to be able to reflect on how the world around you is changing. And I think these days there's a lot of other experiences. As though our life is much more upbeat than our, would I say, ancestors, or more like our parents or our grandparents. We have
Mhm.
this, I don't know how to explain it. It's as though there's so much, like, now, for example, now you get back from work, then you're probably on social media, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're on Netflix, and then you go to bed. It's like there's just so many things to do. And at what point are you even thinking about, oh, what happened today? Why did I frown when this person said this thing? Like, what did I not like about it? What should I have done next time? What should I have said to this person instead? We don't have so much time to reflect on our daily activities, which means that we are not getting to learn as much about ourselves as we should
Mhm.
learn. So yeah, I think it's something we should all endeavor to do.
Right. Speaking of learning about yourself, I I know a lot of writers say, part of the process for them before they're able to write, the first step is experiencing.
Yes.
And I wonder how you take that approach in terms of your work.
Okay. Oh yes, experience it's a big thing. It's a big thing. I think sometimes it makes you, with the word be daring, makes you kind of daring. You want to try out things. You want to try out experiences, not just because you know that okay, it might be fun, but because you wanna know what this feels like, what's it gonna be like to write it, that kind of a thing. So I think sometimes it might make you daring, might make you daring to want to experience more things. But I think for me as a person, I write about things I have not experienced, so I'm not very sure if experience is it's still major, but I can still write about things I've not experienced. And then when I do experience them and I go back and read them, the works, I
Mhm.
would not have written it any better.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah. So yes.
So I want to delve more into those. I think I thought I'd go back to this. As I mentioned, a really key element when I was going through your book is just the vibrant artistry of the book. Shout out to your graphic
You get
designer
free
here.
all your body.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm happy to put his details down in the description if you like, if you're able to send that to me, because I think his work
I'll do
was really amazing on that. Um so but obviously you had the creative direction, I imagine,
that. Yes.
to kind of be like, okay, this is how I want this book to feel,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
So, and I wonder why why that was the, and I'll show this for you viewers. I'll kind of show you some of the artwork if Miriam permits me to do that.
Thank
Um,
you. Mhm.
but I wonder why that was the way you chose to set out this book.
Okay. The first thing would be from the moment where we had the chapters. I doodle a lot actually. There's no book of mine that the back page is empty. It's not possible, except it's not my book. There's going to be one form of doodling or the other. I think I find it therapeutic. It helps me to relax and helps me to focus, especially when I'm on a long phone call. I'm probably doodling something, trying to think and all. So yes, as I created the chapters, I wanted them to feel, when you look at the name of the chapter, I wanted you to get a feeling with an artwork. So I actually had the sketches I actually did from the start. I had the sketches that were made for each chapter. So we
Hmm.
just tried to find a way we could replicate them digitally as best as we could and find something fitting. That was how we
Yeah,
were able to pick out the artworks for everything. And yes,
yeah,
I was particular about everything in my book, including the size, everything. Like,
yeah. I could I could see just how like
I was
uh,
very
y-
particular.
yeah, you can tell when you see a book just how much detail has gone into it. And anyways, so in terms of, so you put together this book, there's usually a process, and I don't know, and this is more for the benefit of people that are new writers that are trying to get into like they want to publish their first book. You had this collection of work, and the way, my understanding of publishing is, back in the day at least, you would write your manuscript, you would send it to a publisher, and they would make up their mind whether the book was worth. putting out into the world or not. And I wonder what that looks like now for,
Yeah.
and I obviously take on board the fact that you've done this in Nigeria, and this is clearly or possibly going to be different to every other part of the world. But I'm interested in your particular experience of publishing your first book, without, I imagine, not having any affiliations with like publishing houses, and what was that journey like?
Okay, so the first option for me definitely was to go through a publishing house because I think I'm very traditional when it comes to like the literary world. I wanted to go to a publishing house, but the thing is that they do not accept unsolicited poetry. That's how they put it every single time. They do not accept unsolicited poetry, so they would not touch it except maybe, I guess, if you're like probably like an influencer or something online, I guess they would touch it that way because at that point in time they'll be the ones reaching out to you for your work. But we
Mm,
got but apart from that, they wouldn't touch it. If it's poetry, nah, they would only do that if it's a story, prose, yes, they would definitely do that. They would accept your work, they would read it and let you know if it's something that fits into their works or not. So that was I tried for a while to do that. Like even if it's unsolicited, I tried to drop manuscripts but they went not down. So that was why we went down the whole self-publishing part. And it was difficult. Nobody told me it was gonna be that difficult because that means everything falls to you from the editing to graphics to cover, and then that also puts a lot of financial burden on your shoulders at the end of the day too, because you're gonna have to pay for every single thing to the end, and then you end up at the point of what's it called of printing and marketing too, and then the book launch. So it's been a great learning process at the end of the day. But
mm.
okay, yes, traditional publishing definitely has its perks. But in a way now, like I know a lot into everything. So it was a good learning process, and I love to learn new things. So it was a good learning process. But I do hope from now on it's gonna be traditional publishing.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and I wonder what you, if you could change something about the way you've gone about this process
Okay.
to make uh, to make it even more awesome.
Okay.
Because I mean, I would say this is perfectly awesome because most people don't realize this, but like you've been on a lot of podcasts recently, a lot of like radio shows in your environment over there. And now with this podcast, you're, you know, reaching out even further into the world.
Yeah.
So guys, I've got a special treat for you guys. So I managed to convince Miriam to read one of the chapters of this book to you. And I say it's a treat because I've seen some of her narration work. You guys check her out on Instagram, by the way. So she's got a really great page over there. But so her narration is, I know I'm building this up now, and she's I'm making her more nervous because now she's got to deliver. So whenever you're ready,
Okay.
I'd like for you to maybe tell us a little bit about the work you're going to read,
Yeah.
and maybe the where your mindset was at when you wrote that particular chapter, and
Mhm.
then if you would do us the honor of reading the chapter to us, that would be perfect.
Okay. So I just figured I'll pick something from the beginning, the chapter called Blooming. So I'm picking the last poem in the chapter.
Actually,
And
maybe you should show us the artwork as well because that's an
okay,
important detail.
yeah, I'm not sure if you can see this. I think it's easier if you have the digital one put up.
Yeah, I will.
So, all right. So this poem I wrote it when I was in love. This one's actually inspired by personal experience. We hardly see it.
Ah.
Yeah, I wrote this one when I was in love. So it's a beautiful one. I think it's one of my favorite love poems in the book. Actually.
Right.
So I am gonna go.
All right. Three, two, one.
Tell the sea why my voice raised the tides in your heart, how I serenaded you with melodious tones, how heaven was a touch away in my eyes. Tell the waters of how my eyes reflect love when you look at me. Tell the earth of how my feet bring forth spring with white roses sprouting everywhere my feet grace. Tell the world Or while my smile lights up your globe, remember to tell them, in the chaos, amid the beautiful madness, your heart unfolded like golden tulips, welcoming me like the sun to bless our bosom with glorious love.
Whoa. Okay. You know, I I like how you kind of like put us in that space. Almost for a while there, it almost felt like like we were kind of held spellbound, kind of hypnotized, and just there with you in that moment. It was almost like like you were relieving that love
So,
again through the words, and I hope that when people read this, they hopefully it brings back good memories.
oh my god.
Because there are a few ways that can go for people, but
I
hopefully it
know.
brings up good emotions for you guys.
Oh my god, this just reminds me about the reviews we've been getting because there was someone that told me, first of all, when they picked up the book and they started reading a few chapters, they dropped it and I'm like, no, this person wants me to face emotions. I'm not ready to. I am not doing this. And then there was someone else that said the person had to call up his exes and apologize.
Oh,
Yes, and I'm like,
oh,
okay. I don't know if that was the effect we were going for, but it's like it's
yeah.
difficult to talk to air from him, but he felt it was very therapeutic for him, like to seek their forgiveness and actually move on. I'm like,
As I said, you got that Taylor Swift effect going for you. So, and that's not a bad light to follow. So,
yeah,
so
it's not, definitely not.
yeah. Anyways, those were my questions for today, Mariam. And I
Okay.
wonder if you wanted to, if you'd like to share, how people can find you, plug anything you'd like to plug, you know.
Okay. You can find me on Instagram at Mariam.Alayande or the Mariam Alayande and TikTok Mariam.Alayande also. But the website it's www.miriamalayande.com. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. So
So, more people.
everything she's just said, I'm gonna plug in the description down below. So thank you so much for your time today, Mariam.
Thanks a
And
lot for having me.
and I hope that people, I really really want people to connect with your work. So I'll also share a link if you're able to provide me that to where they can find the book. Thank you so much for your time. And you
Thanks
know
for having me.
we said everything today, and we didn't even touch what you do for work and for money. We didn't even talk about like your medical career and your dentistry and all of that good stuff. So that's a testament to the kind of elite talent I described you as in my promo for this episode. Um, that's a testament to to just the talent that you are. And I hope that this is just the beginning. We're seeing your first book now, and I'm looking forward to what your second book is going to be and the new elements that you're going to delve into. So yeah, thank
Thank
you for coming.
you. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wolf of Young Street podcast. If you derived value from this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe. I would love to hear from you as well. So please comment your thoughts down below.